Hi, my name is Matt, and for my 4-week project, I'm studying old games from yesteryear and analyzing why they're fun or not fun, and then making my own version of the game that addresses some of the issues I have with them. The first game I'm looking at is Skiing for the Atari 2600. It was authored by Bob Whitehead and released by Activision in 1980. The goal is to ski through as many of these flags as possible in as little time as possible while avoiding the environmental hazards and making sure that you don't actually run into the flags themselves. One of my problems is that it didn't really feel like skiing. I don't actually know what skiing is like, but I felt like it deserved more swooshing. I think it would have felt better if they just rotated a sprite, but instead they had different frames depending on the general angle that the player was facing. That the way they did it does give them more control over how they want the player to look, but it's at the expense of fluid motion. If they wanted to keep the way they did it, I think they could have made it feel a little better if they removed one of the frames. There's actually two frames of the player facing directly down. He's just slightly leaning one way or the other in both of those frames, so you kind of get hooked on it and doesn't feel like you can smoothly go from left to right. There's also a lot of moments where you can just kind of take your hand off the controller and just go straight down and go through quite a few of the flags. I don't mind it when games give you some breaks here and there, but I think the player should always be involved, and I think breaks like that should be earned. Once you pass through the flags, there really isn't any kind of indication that you did a good thing, other than that number at the top going down. You're being timed and your flags are being counted, but with the way they're separated, you don't really know what's more important. I did a few things to address how the skiing movement felt. First, I did away with the multiple frames for my sprites. I went straight to just rotating the skis smoothly. I had trouble drawing an actual skier, but I ended up kind of liking the look of only having the skis themselves, so I left it. I made sure that you could see the tracks in the snow you were making, and I found that it reinforced how smoothly you were swooshing and gliding through the snow. I added real-life noises of the skis going through the snow, because I really liked how the high-fidelity sound paired with the low-fidelity graphics. I thought it made it a little interesting. I also sped things up quite a bit. For the flags, I added some cues to tell the player that they were doing something right by playing a bell and changing the flag colors as soon as they went through them. I also wrapped up everything into one score instead of having a timer on top of the flag score. Ideally, at the end, I probably would have made it so your distance was still calculated separately, and then everything was just added together and tallied at the end of your run, but ran out of time before I could implement it, and figured wrapping everything into one score was a compromise that still addressed the issues I had with the Atari version. I wanted to enforce maximum swooshing, so although most of the tree generation is random, there is one tree generator that is solely focused on the player. It's keeping track of the player's X position and making a tree at certain times just for him. I don't want the player to know I'm doing this, so it's still semi-random. I just want to make sure that the player has the kind of experience I want them to have. In the Atari version, the environmental hazards were more for decoration than anything else, so I wanted to take that and turn it into a real danger in my version. And I went ahead and actually made it my primary mechanic. To give the game a difficulty curve and make it so it's not possible to play forever, I slowly increased the tree density and the speed of the player over time, as well as the player's actual Y position, in order to give the player less time to react. That's my attempt to resolve the issues I had with skiing, and for next week I plan on remaking the Atari 2600 game Combat.